everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Now made up by Disney, Oracle and Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it. Legends. Today, I have the first novel for you in the between episode 1 and 2 era for you. And that is Star Wars Rogue Planet by Greg Bear. For those of you who don't know who Greg Bear is, pretty big sci-fi writer, but on this very channel, we have reviewed a trilogy by Greg Bear. That trilogy being the Forerunner trilogy for Halo, which is the Bible of Halo. It's dense. It is like Dune level dense, that series. You can go see my review of it. I have a playlist for Halo books. So far, that is the only ones I talk about. The impression I've gotten from this author is that he likes to come up with really big concepts that are really hard to visualize. Is something I've noticed. What is special about Rogue Planet? Well, it tries to connect ever so slightly with New Jedi Order, with the planet they go to, with certain things we hear about but never directly see. And that's pretty much it. Pretty minor stuff in terms of connecting, but it is very cool nonetheless. Basically, the plot synopsis of this book, without spoilers, is that Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, this is still Anakin, still supposed to look like the kid from episode 1. He hasn't transitioned to hating Christians yet. And they have to go to this planet because a previous Jedi they sent over there is missing. Or they haven't heard from her. Who is that Jedi? Well, of course, it's Verge from New Jedi Order. So they go in search of that. This book is okay. Overall, the story is fine. The best parts of this book are just kind of the character moments. I haven't read the Jude Watson stuff. Well, I've read stuff with Jude Watson with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, but the stuff with Anakin and Obi-Wan I haven't seen too much of yet, besides, like 1 second half of the story. But I'm interested. I'm sure she'll do a great job, because she always does. But considering that he's not Jude Watson, I thought he did a pretty good job. There's some weird things in there, but for the most part, I like the characterization for Obi-Wan Kenobi in this book, and for Anakin. We don't get that many stories with Anakin as the kid from episode 1 Anakin, so it was nice to see. There's some stuff with Tarkin in here, which is pretty cool. I enjoyed it. Other than that, the main chunk of this book is on the planet, and I don't know, because I already know the mystery from NGO, it's not really that engaging to me, I guess. Though that entire trilogy in NGO, the Force Heretic trilogy, I was never particularly the greatest fan of either. So, there is that. But that is pretty much the synopsis. My biggest issue with Greg Bear is he comes up with all these concepts like the planet itself. There's like these ships that are alive, kind of like the Yusong Vong, but they're not alive. They're called siege ships. And it's an interesting concept, but it's very hard to visualize. And that's something that Greg Bear carries over in his Halo novels, because basically, this isn't a Halo review, but those books take place like a long time before the video games. So you're not exactly sure what the universe is supposed to look like at this point, right? Like, already there was trouble enough in Dawn of the Jedi. If we didn't have the comics, I'd have a hard time grasping what I'm supposed to actually be seeing in certain sections. Except that we don't have comics that far back for the Halo stuff, so there's a lot of stuff for me personally where I could not exactly visualize what I was supposed to see. That being said, the story he was telling was pretty grand, and here it's nothing of the sort. It's very, run of the mill. Of course, it's between episode 1 and 2, nothing really happens. besides the Avengers we see here. So it's pretty alright. Is this essential reading? No, but if you want a story that's, in between episode 1 and 2 with Anakin and Obi-Wan, this would be a good one to go. And it's a nice little connection with little tidbits for stuff you'll see way down the line chronologically. So definitely an okay read, not the best, but I hear there's a magnum opus that we are heading close to. It won't be the next one, but it'll be the one after that, which is Outbound Flight, which will bring up certain concepts in here, like the Far Outsiders again. So I hope you all join me for the next adventure. If you don't want spoilers, now would be your time to skedaddle. If you don't care about spoilers, or you're a veteran, then come stick with me. If you don't want spoilers, again, final warning, now's your time to go, okay? Good. Alright. Final warning. The slave trigger. As I mentioned in my non-spoiler, I really enjoyed the characterization of Anakin. And whenever somebody mentions his slave origins, he gets very upset about that. And some people have issues with kind of the ending of this book and what Anakin does so early on in his life. But I'm personally a really big fan of that. Because, this kill was in self-defense. The first time he does something like actively malicious is in episode 2, after his mom dies. So I don't feel like there's any contradiction there. Clearly the first time he did something like really vindictive was episode 2. But I like the idea that Anakin's fall is not this, his mom dies, wife's gonna die. Those are two things, that's it. That's enough for a trilogy of movies. But for an expansive universe, I like the idea that it was not some process. It was slow. It was a slow turn. You have this little moment here in this book, whatever we see moving forward, episode 2 and the events that go on, the entire Clone Wars and what that could do to somebody, episode 3, and then finally the fall from grace. I like the idea that that's a slow build-up. Then, so that's something I liked. Early on, we get Obi-Wan's kind of like mind thinking about Mace and what Mace is like, and I really enjoyed just hearing what Obi-Wan thought of Mace and how cool Mace is. Just while Mace can be very stoic and to the point, he can also be rather funny, of course, because he's played by Samuel Jackson, but he does have a sense of humor, and he does care. The Tarkin is in this book. He's like the main antagonist, though, like in the background. And they kind of get into tidbits in this book, just kind of explaining what's going on with the Trade Federation, because the Trade Federation just isn't really a thing in episode 2 and 3. Like, there's representatives, they're still around, but they're kind of just gone. And this book kind of delves a bit into what's happened to them since episode 1, which I thought was nice. Mace talks with Anakin, and Verge afterwards. There's this is again early on. They have this discussion very early on with Mace Windu, like kind of interrogating Anakin about stuff. And I really enjoyed that. The whole conversation was very cool. And of course, Verge gets mentioned, and that makes me happy because Verge is one of my favorite Expanded Universe characters. So it was cool to hear from her. Jumping much forward on, I don't have that many notes for this book, but jumping much further onward, we have Qui-Gon's lightsaber. I didn't really understand this. Maybe Obi-Wan's going through a phase. He's using Qui-Gon's lightsaber in this novel, which he doesn't do anywhere else. So I was a little put off by that. But whatever. Lastly, Verge's message near the end of the book, which just gave us explanations that we already knew about if we read NGO, which is that she went to go live with the Far Outsiders and convinced them to leave the planet alone. So that was pretty much it. One other thing I forgot to mention in the non-spoiler was that the chaptering is kind of weird. Like, you'll have a page that is a single chapter, and then you have another page that's like 7 pages, another page it's like 19 pages, another page it's like 2 pages. It's a weird way of going about it, but so be it. Overall, pretty decent read. I mean, I'm glad I read it. It didn't have me completely invested like other books in the expanding universe, but it's a decent read. And if you just want more Anakin and Obi-Wan before the inevitable heartbreak, which is episode 3, I suggest this book to you, especially because there's a couple sentences in here about, like Obi-Wan never caring about someone. He thought he had like a close relationship with Qui-Gon, but he feels like even closer to Anakin, and just tugs at your heart, knowing the inevitable demise. But definitely, I think worth your time. Maybe not the first thing you should read though, or anything. If you've already read NGO and you want more about that, maybe check this one out. Other than that, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.